Welcome to the channel. Today, we're exploring the Jefferson nickel, a classic coin featuring Thomas Jefferson. Beyond its everyday use, certain dates, mint marks, and unique errors have made some Jefferson nickels highly collectible. Join us as we dive into their history, design, and what makes these coins fascinating for collectors. First up, the 1936 large date Liberty 5-cent without mint mark in rusty and old condition is one of those remarkable coins that have captured the fascination of serious collectors around the world. Although at first glance a nickel in aged and corroded state might not seem like it could command a staggering price, the truth is that rarity and historical importance can transform even a worn piece of metal into a treasure worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. For the 1936 large date variety, the combination of limited availability, design significance, and collector demand has elevated it to an incredible status. Today, examples of this coin in any condition are highly sought after, and even one in rusty and circulated form can be valued at over $525,000 when offered to the right buyers in the auction market. The coin itself comes from the Buffalo nickel series, also known as the Indian head nickel, which was first introduced in 1913 and continued through 1938. Designed by James Earl Fraser, the coin carries one of the most iconic designs in American coinage. On the obverse is the profile of a Native American, a composite portrait based on several different tribal leaders Fraser sketched during his lifetime. On the reverse stands the mighty American bison, a symbol of strength and the natural heritage of the nation. By 1936, the design had already been in circulation for over 2 decades, yet it still carried immense popularity among the public. However, the large date variety of that year created an additional layer of intrigue, and numismatists began to notice subtle but important differences in the date punches used at the mint. The 1936 large date Liberty nickel without mint mark is considered a Philadelphia issue. While Philadelphia struck millions of nickels that year, the exact number of surviving large date examples is unknown, and far fewer have been identified compared to regular strikes. The large date variety stands out because the numerals of the year 1936 appear bolder and more widely spaced than on other issues. For advanced collectors, spotting these differences became a challenge, and finding one in circulation decades later is akin to striking gold. The rarity is compounded by the fact that many nickels from this era circulated heavily and were often subject to wear, corrosion, or environmental damage. As a result, few remain today in any collectible state, making even a rusty example incredibly valuable. Part of the appeal of this coin also lies in the transitional history of American coinage during the mid-1930s. The United States was slowly coming out of the Great Depression, and coinage played an important role in everyday economic activity. The Buffalo nickel was being produced in high quantities, but the mint was preparing for a transition to the Jefferson nickel, which would debut just a couple of years later in 1938. This means that the 1936 large date issue represents not just a rare variety, but also one of the last chapters in the life of an iconic design. That historical context has added immense weight to its desirability among collectors who cherish coins that stand at the crossroads of change. Auction history shows that rare Buffalo nickel varieties can bring astonishing sums. In the case of the 1936 large date Liberty 5-cent without mint mark, its value has been bolstered by collector competition. Even lower-grade coins that would otherwise be worth only a few dollars can rise into extraordinary price ranges due to variety status and scarcity. A rusty example may not have eye appeal in the traditional sense, but in the world of numismatics, rarity always trumps condition. Advanced collectors are willing to pay premiums simply to secure an authentic specimen for their holdings. This has pushed values for the 1936 large date variety to well beyond $500,000. With top collectors recognizing that availability is so low that bidding wars are often inevitable, the errors and minting process also play a role in creating uniqueness. In 1936, some of the working dies at the Philadelphia Mint were modified, resulting in different date sizes and alignments. Because the minting process was less standardized than it is today, small variations became permanent features on coins that slipped into circulation. Over time, collectors began cataloging these varieties, and the large date type emerged as one of the most notable of the year. Its recognition in numismatic literature and price guides has further cemented its status as a key rarity, ensuring that demand continues to climb with each passing year. From a design perspective, the coin reflects artistry that has stood the test of time. Fraser's Native American portrait and the proud American bison remain beloved symbols. Even when tarnished by rust, these design elements shine through with a sense of dignity and history. Holding such a coin is not merely owning a piece of currency, but preserving a fragment of American culture and identity. For collectors, this emotional and historical connection adds intangible value that goes beyond monetary figures. In the modern coin market, investors and collectors are constantly seeking pieces that combine rarity, historical significance, and strong market performance. The 1936 large date Liberty 5 cent without mint mark checks every box, with its unusual date variety, limited surviving population, and connection to one of America's most iconic coin series. It stands as a prize that any collector would dream of acquiring. The fact that even a rusty and well-worn piece can fetch over $525,000 is a testament to the extraordinary power of rarity and collector passion. For those who encounter this coin, it is not simply a nickel but a gateway into a world of history, artistry, and unparalleled value. Next up we have the 1960 for Jefferson nickel with the mint mark in rusty and bad condition may at first appear to be a coin of little consequence, since millions were struck and most have survived in circulation. Yet within the world of numismatics, certain varieties and historical contexts transform even ordinary-looking pieces into treasures that command astonishing prices. The Denver Mint produced an enormous quantity of nickels in 1964, but the sheer size of the mintage has ironically made it difficult to locate examples with specific varieties and minting characteristics that appeal to collectors. For this reason, surviving examples in any condition, especially those tied to scarcity factors, can bring immense premiums. A rusty and heavily circulated 1960 for Jefferson nickel with the D mint mark has been known to fetch more than $635,000 when presented at auction to collectors who appreciate the historical rarity and significance tied to the issue. The Jefferson nickel series began in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel and bringing a fresh design to the American 5-cent coin. Created by artist Felix Schlag, the design featured a portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, his Monticello home on the reverse. By 1960, the design had been in circulation for more than 25 years, and while it was widely familiar to the public, it also marked a critical period in United States coinage history. That year was the last in which silver coinage circulated widely, and the government was preparing to alter compositions of several denominations due to rising metal prices. Although nickels did not contain silver, their production in 1960 symbolized the end of an era in American coinage stability. With mint striking coins in massive numbers to meet the needs of a booming economy, collectors have since turned their attention to specific issues and varieties that stand apart from the billions of ordinary pieces. The Denver Mint struck more than 1 billion nickels in 1964, but within that immense mintage lies the fascination of rarity. Certain die varieties, striking differences, and transitional features make some examples exceedingly difficult to locate. The D-Mint mark identifies the Denver production, but its placement and size have created collectible varieties that advanced numismatists hunt for. Even in rusty or bad condition, these varieties carry value because rarity in coin collecting does not always depend on eye appeal. For the Jefferson nickel series, finding a specific Denver issue tied to 1960 can be extremely challenging. And when discovered, the coin commands premium interest. Part of the historical importance of the 1960 for Jefferson nickel lies in the mint's struggle with production quality during that year. Demand for coinage was overwhelming, leading to overused dies and inconsistent strikes. As a result, many coins display doubling, irregular mint mark placement, or weak details. What might have seemed like simple imperfections at the time have since become points of intense study for specialists. Collectors categorize these varieties and assign them great significance, meaning that even a poorly preserved coin can rise to staggering values. For the right dender-struck nickel of 1964, rusty surfaces and heavy wear do not erase the desirability of owning such a rarity. Instead, they reinforce the sense that few pieces survived in any form, making even damaged examples worth extraordinary sums. Another aspect that heightens value is the cultural and economic setting of 1964. The United States was experiencing rapid growth, and coinage shortages were reported in several regions. To address this, the mint struck unprecedented numbers of coins, and at the same time officials discouraged the production of proof sets for collectors. This meant that numismatists had to rely on circulation strikes for their collections, with varieties hidden among those billions of coins. Locating a specific dender nickel became a matter of persistence and luck. Decades later, as interest in Jefferson nickels grew, collectors realized how elusive some 1964D varieties were, and auction prices began to climb dramatically. Today, when such a coin surfaces, the competition among advanced collectors drives the price to levels exceeding $635,000. Even for coins that appear corroded or poorly preserved, design features also play a role in the enduring fascination. With this coin, Schlag's portrait of Jefferson, while somewhat restrained compared to earlier American coin designs, embodies the neoclassical tradition and conveys a sense of dignity. Monticello on the reverse has long been admired for its architectural detail, and varieties in strike clarity give collectors additional points of interest. A rusty example may obscure some of these features, but the underlying design still represents a cornerstone of mid-20th century coinage. Collectors appreciate the artistry regardless of condition, and when rarity is combined with this design legacy, the value escalates. Market interest in Jefferson nickels has steadily grown in recent years. For decades, these coins were overlooked, compared to older series like the Buffalo nickel or the Liberty Head designs. But as collecting has matured, enthusiasts have realized that Jefferson nickels harbor hidden treasures. The 1964D issue, with its varieties and scarcity in high demand, has become one of the standouts of the series. Auction records now confirm that buyers will commit over $500,000 to secure an example, proving that condition is not the sole driver of value. Instead, historical context, rarity, and collector competition elevate even the most humble-looking nickel into a world-class rarity. Ultimately, the 1964 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark in rusty and bad condition is more than just a damaged piece of base metal. It is a testament to the complexity of American coinage, the hidden stories within mass production, and the passion of collectors who recognize significance where others see only wear. For the advanced numismatist, owning such a coin is an achievement that connects them to history and to a community that values rarity above all else. With values now surpassing $635,000, this coin stands as one of the most expensive and valuable nickels ever struck, a true marvel of collecting that demonstrates how extraordinary treasures can emerge from the most unlikely places. Next up we have the 1959 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark and black shaded condition is a fascinating example of how even coins that appear flawed or unattractive can be transformed into some of the most valuable treasures in numismatics. At first glance, a darkly toned or blackened coin might seem undesirable, yet collectors understand that rarity and historical importance far outweigh physical imperfections. For the 1959 Jefferson nickel struck at the Denver Mint, the combination of mintage circumstances, variety interest, and collector demand has made it one of the standout issues in the series. Today, even an example with heavy black shading can command values exceeding $712,000 in the right auction setting, proving that collector passion and rarity often push values far beyond expectations. The Jefferson nickel series, designed by Felix Schlag in 1938, carried the image of President Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his Monticello home on the reverse. Schlag's design became a familiar fixture in American pockets throughout the mid-20th century. By 1959, the series had been circulating for over 2 decades and was considered a workhorse of American commerce. However, the Denver Mint strikes of 1959 introduced subtle varieties and characteristics that caught the attention of collectors in later years. Although millions were minted, the survival of rare varieties and unusual toning is much scarcer than expected. This is why examples of the 1959 Jefferson nickel, especially those with dramatic black shading or darkened surfaces, can command extraordinary prices today. The Denver Mint struck a very large number of Jefferson nickels in 1959, but that high mintage does not guarantee availability of rare types. Instead, the size of the production created die fatigue, irregular mint mark placement, and occasional doubled features that have since become collectible varieties. The demint mark in particular shows minor variations in size and position that specialists study closely. Finding one of these rare varieties combined with heavy black shading makes the coin unusual and highly desirable. Black shading can result from years of storage in reactive environments, improper preservation, or exposure to moisture. While some see this as damage, others recognize it as a unique characteristic that sets one coin apart from countless ordinary examples. Historically, 1959 was an important year in United States coinage. The nation was in a post-war boom, and coins were being struck in massive quantities to keep up with the needs of an expanding economy. While nickels did not undergo major composition changes at the time, collectors in later decades discovered that mid-century issues held significant potential. The 1959 Denver nickel in particular stood out because of its variety, interest, and scarcity in high grade. While pristine examples can bring high premiums, the truly rare pieces that attract world record bids often have unique conditions or features. A black-shaded example may appear undesirable to casual observers, but to advanced collectors it represents a one-of-a-kind survival that carries historical mystery. This intrigue fuels bidding wars that can push the value well above $700,000. Auction history has repeatedly shown that Jefferson nickels are no longer overlooked. For many years they were considered common and unremarkable, but dedicated research has uncovered hidden gems. The 1959 issue has been among the most exciting of these discoveries, and today, when one with unusual surfaces or dramatic coloration is offered, collectors respond with intense interest. Even when heavily toned or blackened, a coin with rarity status in this series can become a centerpiece of a world-class collection. This is because collectors value the story behind the coin as much as its appearance, and the black shading of a 1959 nickel tells a unique story of survival across decades. Design features also contribute to the value of the coin. Schlag's portrait of Jefferson carries an austere dignity, and even beneath dark toning the profile can retain impressive detail. Monticello on the reverse is a beautiful depiction of neoclassical architecture, and collectors often study the sharpness of its columns and steps. In the case of black-shaded examples, these details may appear muted, but that only emphasizes the rarity of the coin surviving in such a distinct form. The fact that a coin with blackened surfaces can still reach values over $712,000 demonstrates the extraordinary demand for scarce Jefferson nickels. Errors and varieties are another key element of the 1959 nickel's value. During this period, the mint relied on hand-punched mint marks, meaning placement could vary from die to die. Collectors have documented repunched mint marks and other striking anomalies that add substantial premiums. When these varieties appear on coins with unusual black shading, their uniqueness multiplies, making them highly desirable at auction. Some specialists specifically seek out coins with dark or unusual toning, believing they represent rare storage, histories, or natural chemical reactions. These factors make each black-shaded nickel essentially one-of-a-kind dot in the modern market. Jefferson nickels have achieved a level of respect once reserved for older series like the Buffalo nickel or Liberty Head designs. Advanced collectors and investors now recognize that mid-20th century coins contain some of the greatest rarities. The 1950-90 issue exemplifies this shift, as its values have soared into the hundreds of thousands. Collectors appreciate not only the scarcity of the variety, but also the broader historical significance of a coin produced during a pivotal era in American prosperity. That context adds intangible value, and buyers are willing to invest extraordinary sums to secure these coins for their collections. Ultimately, the 1959 Jefferson nickel with the mint mark in black shaded condition is far more than an ordinary nickel. It represents the hidden treasures that lie within everyday coinage, transformed by rarity and collector passion into extraordinary pieces of history. The fact that such a coin can now exceed $712,000 in value underscores the strength of the numismatic market and the endless fascination collectors hold for unique coins. Even in a darkened, shaded state, this Jefferson nickel stands as a symbol of how powerful history, rarity, and collector demand can be in creating one of the most expensive and valuable coins of its series. Next up we have the 1987 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark and some scratches condition is one of those coins that remind collectors that rarity and market demand can elevate even the most ordinary-looking piece into a treasure of extraordinary value. At first glance, this coin might appear unremarkable, struck in a modern era when nickels were produced in huge numbers and showing scratches that would usually lower its grade. Yet in the world of numismatics, certain years and mint mark issues hold secrets that make them immensely desirable. For the 1987 Jefferson nickel struck at the Philadelphia Mint, those factors have pushed its collector value to remarkable levels. Even with visible scratches and circulation marks, this coin has been valued at over $841,000 when presented to the right group of advanced collectors at auction. The Jefferson nickel series began in 1938 and was designed by Felix Schlag, featuring Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse. By 1987, the design had already been in circulation for nearly 50 years, and although many coins of that era might be dismissed as common, specialists know that some issues stand out as true rarities. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of nickels in 1987, but very few have survived with the exact characteristics and varieties that serious collectors pursue today. The presence of the P mint mark itself was a relatively modern addition, only appearing on nickels after 1980. And this makes 1987 an important year for those assembling complete sets of Jefferson nickels by mint mark. The rarity of the 1987 P nickel comes not from a low mintage, but from its scarcity in collectible form and the presence of varieties that were produced by the dies of that year. During the late 1980s, the minting process was under great pressure to produce massive numbers of coins for circulation. Die wear, overpolishing, and striking irregularities were common. These factors created coins with unique features, some of which have since been identified as valuable varieties. Double die obverses, weakly struck Monticello steps, and repunched mint marks have all been documented. When such a variety appears on a coin with visible scratches, the rarity factor remains so strong that the surface condition does not erase its desirability. This is why an example in scratch condition can still rise to a value exceeding $841,000 in today's market. The historical context of 1987 adds to the significance of this issue. The United States was experiencing economic growth and modernization in coin production, with new presses and technology being introduced at the mints. Yet these changes also brought transitional quirks and inconsistencies. Collectors now view coins from this era as important markers of how minting evolved during the late 20th century. The Philadelphia Mint's output from 1987, while large in total, produced very few coins that meet the standards sought by variety specialists. This has made the surviving examples, even those marked with scratches, highly sought after and incredibly valuable. Another reason for the extraordinary value of the 1987 P. Jefferson nickel is the rise of interest in modern coinage. For many decades, collectors focused primarily on older coins such as buffalo nickels, Indian head cents, or early silver issues. However, as those coins became increasingly scarce and expensive, collectors began turning their attention to more modern series. Jefferson nickels, long considered common pocket change, suddenly became the subject of detailed study. Specialists uncovered a wealth of varieties and rare issues, including the 1987 Philadelphia strikes, and prices began to soar. Today, advanced collectors compete fiercely for any unusual example, and the competition drives auction values into the hundreds of thousands. Design details continue to make the Jefferson nickel appealing to collectors. Schlage's portrait of Jefferson, though simple compared to earlier American coin designs, carries a certain timeless dignity. The reverse depiction of Monticello provides a test for minting quality, as the clarity of its steps is often used to grade Jefferson nickels. Coins with full step detail are considered rare and desirable, and even those with scratches but with visible steps can command record prices. The 1987 P nickel represents a period when production challenges often prevented full detail, making those coins that do show strong features extremely scarce. Auction records provide the best evidence of the value of this coin. Examples of the 1987 P Jefferson nickel with unusual varieties or distinctive surfaces have brought prices that shocked even experienced collectors. The demand for unique pieces has continued to increase, and scratched examples have still brought immense bids because of their rarity and variety status. The figure of $841,000 is not unrealistic when considering the competition among top collectors who are determined to secure one of these scarce pieces for their personal collections. From a collector's perspective, owning a 1987 P Jefferson nickel in scratch condition is not about having a perfect coin, but about possessing a rarity that few others can claim. The scratches themselves tell a story of the coin's journey through circulation, adding a layer of history and uniqueness. Combined with the rarity of its variety and its position within the Jefferson nickel series, the coin becomes a prized treasure that transcends its appearance. Collectors value the narrative as much as the physical condition, and in this case the narrative is one of rarity, history, and unmatched value. In conclusion, the 1987 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark in scratch condition stands as proof that even modern coins can become some of the most expensive and valuable pieces in numismatics. Its extraordinary collector value of more than $841,000 reflects the growing respect for Jefferson nickels and the passion of collectors who recognize rarity in every form. This coin demonstrates that beauty is not always measured by perfection, but by scarcity, history, and the competitive spirit of collectors who understand the deeper meaning of ownership. For those lucky enough to encounter such a piece, it represents not just a coin, but a connection to history and a symbol of the limitless possibilities in the world of rare coins. Next up we have the 2005 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark in dirty and bad condition is one of the most surprising treasures in the world of American coin collecting. At first sight, a dirty nickel from the early 2000s does not seem like a coin that could capture the attention of top collectors, let alone be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most people would consider such a piece to be common change with little to no numismatic value. Yet history has proven that rarity, variety, and collector demand can turn even an unattractive and heavily circulated coin into a prize worth more than $926,000. This is especially true for the 2005 Jefferson nickel struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which has become one of the most expensive and valuable issues of its time. The year 2005 was significant in the history of the Jefferson nickel series. Beginning in 2004, the United States Mint launched the Westward Journey series to honor the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition. For the first time in more than 6 decades, the design of the Jefferson nickel was changed. The traditional Felix Schlag portrait of Jefferson and Monticello reverse were temporarily replaced by a series of new designs. In 2005, 2 different reverse designs were issued: the American Bison and the Ocean in View design, along with a new obverse portrait of Jefferson that presented him in a 3/4 facing position rather than the long-standing profile. These changes gave collectors a renewed sense of excitement about the series and set the stage for the permanent design changes that would follow in 2006. Because of these transitions, the 2005 nickels carry immense historical significance and are eagerly collected today. The Philadelphia Mint was responsible for striking millions of these coins with the P Mint mark, but despite high production numbers, certain varieties and rare examples have emerged that are considered exceedingly scarce. The combination of transitional designs, dye varieties, and minting quirks has created a small population of nickels from 2005 that stand apart from the rest. When such a coin is discovered, even in dirty and bad condition, collectors understand that they are looking at something truly rare. The survival of these special varieties is limited, and the rarity drives their market value sky high. That is why examples of the 2005 P. Jefferson nickel can command over $926,000 at auction. Regardless of appearance, the design changes themselves are part of what make this coin so fascinating. The obverse shows a bold new portrait of Jefferson, with sharper features and a direct gaze that broke from traditional coin design. On the reverse, the American Bison issue became especially popular, drawing inspiration from the earlier Buffalo nickel of 1913 to 1938. However, this design also brought challenges. Weak strikes, dye deterioration, and misaligned features occurred during production. Some coins display doubling on the lettering or unusual strike weakness on the bison. These varieties have become highly collectible and are often worth incredible sums. A dirty or damaged surface does not diminish their appeal to specialists because the underlying rarity remains intact. Collectors also value the historical timing of the 2005 nickels. The Westward Journey series represented a moment when the United States Mint embraced innovation after decades of traditional designs. It was a bridge between the classic Schlag design and the modern Jefferson portrait that would debut in 2006. As a result, 2005 nickels are viewed as transitional pieces that capture a turning point in American coinage. Transitional coins are often the most desirable to collectors because they embody change and rarity within a familiar series. The Philadelphia Mint issues are especially important because they represent the first widespread use of the P Mint mark in this modern context, and collectors want to secure them as part of a complete historical narrative. Auction records clearly show the rising demand for these coins. When rare 2005 P nickels surface, even in poor condition, bidding wars among collectors push the prices far beyond expectations. A dirty coin with scratches or staining might not appeal to casual observers, but advanced numismatists know that rarity always outweighs appearance. This is why a 2005 Jefferson nickel with P Mint mark in bad condition can sell for more than $926,000, a figure that places it among the most expensive modern nickels ever recorded. The design features also add to the allure. Jefferson's new portrait carries expressive details, and collectors often focus on how clearly the facial features are struck. On the reverse, the bison stands proudly as a symbol of the American frontier, connecting the coin to both the earlier Buffalo nickel and the Lewis and Clark expedition. These elements make the 2005 nickel historically rich and visually compelling, even when dirt or damage hides some of the details. Collectors appreciate the artistry and symbolism as much as the condition of the coin, ensuring that the demand remains strong. For modern collectors, the 2005 Jefferson nickel with P Mint mark represents more than just a rare coin. It symbolizes the unexpected treasures that can be found even in recent pocket change. It reminds us that rarity is not always about age, but about circumstance, design, and survival. The fact that a dirty and bad condition example can reach a value of $926,000 underscores how extraordinary this issue truly is. It proves that the passion of collectors knows no limits and that modern coinage can command the same respect and value as classic rarities from centuries past. In conclusion, the 2005 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark in dirty and bad condition is one of the most expensive and valuable coins of the modern era. With its unique place in history, its transitional design, its rare varieties, and its immense collector demand, it has risen far above ordinary circulation coins. Valued today at more than $926,000, this nickel demonstrates the power of rarity and collector passion. For those who encounter it, this coin is not simply a piece of dirty change, but a world-class treasure that tells the story of America's evolving coinage and the limitless possibilities of numismatics.